Hi, welcome to Scroll Saw Video. We're here today with George North. He's an old friend of mine. I've probably known George approximately 12, 13 years or so. George is our club's local Intarsia expert. So, George, welcome.
Thank you.
Glad you could be with us today. Well, thank you for inviting us into your home. Thank you for agreeing to do this short video. Hopefully you'll get a lot of exposure from this, and maybe Channel 5 News will be down here next week and doing another video with you.
That's not likely, but that's a possibility, I guess.
George, you're our local Intarsia expert. What got you started in Intarsia, and why did you want to do that?
Well, actually, the first scroll saw that I bought, I was working with my son who was in the storm window business, and this was years ago when they used to have craft shows in the middle of malls, and they had one down at Lenox Square. And the guy about 2 or 3 booths down from mine was selling scroll saws, and I went down and watched him for a while and decided the company needed a scroll saw. So we brought the scroll saw, and it sat out there, and I didn't do much with it for a long time, and I'm not real fond of a lot of fret work. I like to do a little fret work, but I guess I got started by buying a book by Judy Gale Roberts and some others too. I've never had any art training, and I've never had any scroll saw training. So I learned by reading magazines or books, and of course there's more art involved in segmentation and Intarsia than it is in anything else using a scroll saw. So that's what interests me the most.
How many years have you been doing it now?
How old was GWA?
Our club is approximately 10 years old.
Okay, I've probably been doing it about 12, 14.
Anyway. 12, 14 years. Well, I know you started, when I met you, you first showed us an Intarsia piece. And I think that was around 99, you're 1999, 98, 99.
Could have been, yeah.
And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you were one of the original members from the Scroll Saw Club that helped found the Gwinnett Woodworkers Association.
I was an early member. Actually, the first meeting I went to, you were having the meetings up at Home Depot in Lawrenceville, I believe it was.
Yeah, correct.
And somebody, I don't know how I got involved. I think maybe I met Ron somewhere, Ron Brown, and I was told to come up to one of the meetings and to bring something I had been doing. Well, I got up there, and of course there were about a dozen or so people there, and each one was showing what they had done, and I was the last one up, and I said, well, I don't have any work like you have. I mean, everybody had fret work. I said, what I do is Intarsia. And the guys looked at me and said, what? Most of them had never even heard of Intarsia, so I got started some time ago on Intarsia, and it's the thing I like the most.
Okay. I don't know the proper way of asking this next question, so I'm going to, since you're an old friend of mine, I'm going to just come out straight out and ask you it. What is your age?
82.
82 years old. Remarkable. We'll show some pictures of George's Intarsia throughout this slide. Every bit of this Intarsia from start to finish was completed by George himself. He has a shop in the back of his house. We'll get a couple of photos of this shop in a few minutes and also show this. George, I see the ship to the right of you. Could you tell us about the ship? I know it's not Intarsia, but it's an awesome woodworking piece.
Well, that particular ship was made. I saw one similar to that, but it was a generic. All of the sails were the same size, and I decided I didn't want a generic. If I was going to go to the trouble and the time it took to build something, I wanted it to look like something special. So I looked in the encyclopedia, and I found a very small picture of 1802, I believe it is, clipper ship. I took that small picture and blew it up as much as I could until it got grainy enough I could hardly see it. And I scaled the size of the sails and so forth. And after I did that, I drew my pattern and started making this one. I don't remember exactly how many hours this one took. It seemed like it took about 40 hours to build. And it was built using all the sails were carved using a belt sander. And later, after I built this one, and my three sons kept saying, that sure would look good on my mantelpiece or someplace they had in their house. I said, well, I'll just make some more. So I made 3 of them to give to each of my sons on Christmas morning. And I made those 3 in about 66 hours. So I cut my time down from about 40 hours by mass producing them that way to about 22 hours per ship. And also, in addition to that, the first one I built, this is a ship. I built a sailboat first, and the sailboat, which you have seen, I also got a write-up in the Scroll Saw. What is it?
Scroll Saw Woodworkings and Crafts.
Right, Scroll Saw Woodworking and Crafts.
Do you remember which issue number that was? So people can, our audience can go back and view it.
2009. What?
November 2009. Does that sound familiar?
That sounds right. Yeah.
Okay. Another project in a different magazine, the same magazine but a different issue. Could you describe that project?
Oh, I had the.
You almost forgot.
Yeah. I had the little animals that could be taken apart. The way they were cut is like a puzzle, and remove the eye, then each piece could be taken apart all the way down to the tail. And I made, I think, a bear and a horse, and there were 3 or 4 items. I had a write-up on that. That's been several years ago. Since then, I also made a snake doing it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But the snake has never been apart since I first put it together, because if I ever take it apart, I'm gonna number the pieces so I can put them back together, because it was all freehand cut, and I'd need some method of putting it back together. I'm not real fond of putting together puzzles or puzzles that somebody else made. I like cutting puzzles, making puzzles, and of course Intarsia is one big puzzle. Another thing I didn't like prior to getting into Intarsia was sanding. Whenever I built something in my shop, I hated sanding it, and of course Intarsia is about 30% scrolling and about 70% sanding, and it comes out like a puzzle, so you've got to put it all together. But there I have all my parts numbered, the pattern parts are numbered, so it makes it easier to put it back together.
Okay, how many patterns would you estimate you've done over the years? How many different projects?
How many different projects?
Yes, total.
Oh, gosh.
Rough estimate.
I don't know, it'd be in the hundreds, upper hundreds, I guess.
I was thinking about it a couple of days ago, and I was guessing around 400 projects, approximately.
Yeah, well, I'd take one almost, for a long time, I took one almost every week to the meeting we had. So, that's 50 a year, and I've done that for several years, so I've done a lot.
Okay.
You'll see a lot of them when we go to my display back there.
As far as the Intarsia process, let's do a brief description of the process.
Well, Intarsia is making, I guess you'd say, pictures using different colors of wood. Now, there's Intarsia and there's segmentation. Segmentation, you cut the whole picture from one piece of wood, and you form all the pieces after you cut them, and paint each piece, and then glue them together. With Intarsia, you use the natural finish of the wood, so consequently, in one Intarsia piece, you may have 8 or 10 different kinds of wood, anything from a white to a real dark piece, and that's basically about what it amounts to. I mean.
Okay, I'll have 2 more questions for you, then we'll cut this off. So far today, do you have a favorite project that you have done?
Generally, it's the one I'm working on at the time, because I guess that marine emblem was one of my favorites, and of course the Last Supper. The Last Supper took 155 hours, so, and I don't even know how many different kinds of wood in it, but there's almost 600 pieces, different individual pieces in it. I did make it from a pattern that I purchased. This morning I've got several others that I've got to do, like the Air Force and Coast Guard, and I don't know whether that covers them all or not.
Another thing I like to stress, George is not only an expert in Intarsia, but he's very willing to share his knowledge with anybody. He's done several classes for the local clubs around town. Very given knowledge. He uses Delta CAD to draw some of his patterns. He's had classes on how to use Delta CAD. He's had classes on how to build his ship over here to the right of George. Very given with his knowledge. One last question. Give our audience 2 tips, your favorite tips on making Intarsia.
Be sure you number every piece on your pattern, and then as you remove the pattern from each piece after you've cut it, put the number on the bottom of the piece and put it upright so that when you drop half a dozen pieces on the floor and you pick them up, you try to decide which side is up and which side is down, and which is top and bottom. You can turn it over and look at that number, and you know that it goes this way, so it makes it easier to reassemble. And of course, by putting wax paper over the pattern on your table, as you place the parts on there, when you get ready to glue it together, you can after you shape the parts, you can put the tacky glue on each piece and glue them together on top of that, and you can just pull the wax paper off after about 30 minutes and handle it.
Okay.
I have a grandson who knows the dinosaurs all by name. Of course, you'll notice on these I had to have the name put on them so I could tell what they were. But I decided to make him a set of dinosaurs, so when I cut them, I cut stack cut them, and I cut 2 sets. And after I made them, I was down at Michael's right before Halloween one year, and they had some paint down there that absorbs light. So I painted all these skeletons with that paint, and when I gave them to him, he hung them up in his bedroom. But when he turned the light off to go to bed, those things would glow for about 15 to 20 minutes after he got into bed, so he could lay there and look at them. I bought a pattern for the beginning of the trail. The beginning of the trail is slightly larger than the end of the trail you see up here. But after I made that one, I got to thinking that somewhere in the world there was a famous sculpture that a guy did. It was called The End of the Trail. So I looked in the encyclopedia and I found a little 2-inch square silhouette of the end of the trail, and I blew that up to the size I wanted it. And then I took the outline of that and all the markings that I had on the end of the beginning of the trail. I put the same markings on the horse, the same Indian face and everything, and came up with the end of the trail. So that's sort of a one of a kind. This is one my wife likes. Gecko. Actually, this was made from a 2x4 for a 2x4 contest that Woodworkers has every year, and so I made this from a 2x4. Believe it or not, a couple of my favorites are the mule and the little lovebirds up here.